to this episode of Unstoppable Journeys. My name is Ryan Gubick, founder and personal CFO of MRG Wealth, and I'd like to introduce you to a special guest we have today, Alain Pelletier, professional speaker. Welcome, Alain.
Thank you so much.
Did I pronounce Alain properly?
That's perfect. It's
apologize if I messed it up.
Alain Pelletier is good, but it's a French name. It's very hard to explain but it's Alain Pelletier, but Alain's good. Alain's good.
Thank you. I try. Hopefully A for effort.
Yeah.
So we met yesterday at a coffee shop, and you're in Calgary just for a short period of time. Thank you so much for coming to the show with us. And you're a professional speaker on bullying, you were mentioning.
Yeah, I do this full time. I just have a conference where I have several conferences actually where the schools they hire me and they allow me or they ask me to present to their students and parents committees or on the Pro D days. Sometimes I do professional developments on half-a-day sessions on bullying for teachers and whoever gravitates around the schooling system. But I made up a conference and everybody seems to like it very much.
Amazing. And that's such an important topic, bullying, whether it be with kids in the school system all the way up to adults. I think there's no shortage of reality TV shows out there where you see bullying even at the adult level. So can you talk a bit about, the problem of bullying and what does it kind of do to our youth and to people?
Yeah. The biggest problem I find is in 2012, they came up with this law that every school in Canada, French and English, elementary, junior high, everybody needs to do something on bullying. So we're all on the same page. But the way that Bullying Canada defines bullying is a bad action or word done over a certain period of time to a certain individual. And that definition is so gray and so in the clouds that everybody that feels bad over a game or a certain joke says, well, it's bullying because it's so wide and not well defined. So now we're having these problems where we tell our kids, we tell our students, hey, whenever you feel bullied with that definition, you should go see a teacher. Now, especially in this time of the year, there's a certain professional fatigue where I see in teachers because they're going in the hallways, they're going supervised recess, and all they have is kids saying, "Hey, Madame, Monsieur, Madame, Monsieur." They're getting but they don't know how to verbalize it, and they don't know how to make the difference between something that two friends or an argument and what bullying really is. So they're just being bombarded with a whole bunch of situations that we can't make the difference. And they're like, I have a lot of more stuff to do, but they're saying, well, go play elsewhere and it'll probably figure it out by itself. So the kids are feeling that their schooling systems are not doing anything. It's not true. They are doing a lot of things, but there's a process or the problem in the process of how to tell her kids, how to tell our students, how to communicate to the teacher and actually be able to verbalize. So the first thing is we need to make a big difference between a normal or an argument and or something that's not fun that's being felt and bullying. So the main thing is when I talk to kids is how are you feeling? So if I do something bad, if big brother hits small brother, they're probably going to feel angry or sad. It's not bullying. The intention of bullying is I want to create fear from that person towards me. So if I go and I kind of flinch like this, they didn't hurt. They're not crying. They're not feeling angry. They're feeling scared. So now that's the difference between something that's said that's not nice and what bullying really is. What's the emotion you're going through? That's the first step that the students and kids should know before going to see a teacher.
That's a really good point. I don't think I've actually ever heard it explained that way. Because
No.
quite often bullying is talking about actions. And like you said, it's very, if you get thrown eggs at your face every day, maybe that's bullying. But, there's so many gray areas between that and what you just described in the playgrounds and brothers and sisters and the emotion inside of the fear.
Yeah.
That's a really good way
It's so wide because when you tell a kid or a student, hey, whatever you're saying is bad. Well, if I'm in a group of people and we call ourselves whatever, and that word can maybe it's wrong, maybe it's not a nice word, but I take that word and I wear it like it was a logo. I there's a sense of camaraderie, or a family feeling, or I feel like I'm within a group. I'm feeling inclusion, but it's still a bad word. But hey, that same word giving to another kid can say, hey, I'm being bullied. So we say to ourselves, well, you can't say that, it's being bullied. But that other kid feels good about it. There's actually a happy feeling, or an inclusion feeling with it. But it's not bullying, I feel good about it. And the best example is my parents used to live in Newfoundland. And when I went to visit, uh, I met a whole bunch of people there, and everybody over there calls themselves Newfies. And I say, hey, Newfie, can you come over here? Newfie this, or what did you do? Like, it's an inclusion word. Like, they're kind of separated from the rest of Canada, because not Labrador, but the island, they're kind of separated. So they call themselves Newfie this, but everybody feels good about it. And I was within a group, and I wanted to fit in, so I said, oh, Newfie, what are you doing? And that kid kind of looked at me and says, how did you call me? Well, I kind of felt bad. I said, well, and my friend kind of leaned in. He kind of took my protection. He says, no, no, his parents live here now. He's okay. And he kind of took my back. And after a couple of minutes, he took me aside. Why did you say that? I said, well, I wanted to feel included. I wanted to be part of the gang. So but you can't say that. You're from the mainland. You can't call yourself Newfie. But so that same word, whenever they're talking to them, it's a logo. It's like I'm part of a team. But when somebody else calls me, we could be qualified as bullying, because he wasn't happy about it. Not probably scared, but he wasn't happy about it. So he kind of told me. So that same word can be defined many different ways. So where do we put the line on how do we make the difference? And you can't, if I didn't know it then, how do you expect a grade 3 to know the difference, right? So you need to start from the victim's feeling. This is where you need to start. We can define bullying 10 different ways. And let's say, tell you what, I go in any school, I sit with any kid, and I'll ask them, what is bullying? Tell you what's going to happen. They're all going to tell me the exact same thing.
What are they
Or
gonna say?
they'll define bullying like the school systems define bullying. They'll say it's a bad word, bad action given over a certain period of time, given freely, meaning I didn't provoke anything, right? It's given free. They'll all tell you the same thing. And we got to ask yourself the question, well, why in 2024 do we hear a lot more of it than 2012? Since in Feb 2012 we put all these different actions, different laws, different pedagogical information, that things that we could do in schools where we can help stop it.
Yeah, we're sure talking about it a lot more than we did prior
Exactly.
generations.
But we're hearing it a lot more. The reason is we don't define it well enough. It's not precise enough for a kid to make the difference between a bad and bullying. What is really defined as bullying, right? So we need to start we need to start the conversation about how the victim perceives it. That's it. The minute we start there, that's where because if I talk to a kid who's the captain of the hockey team, or the skiing team, or she does ballet, or they have good grades at home, they have or good grades at school, they have a lot of friends at home, they have positive parental presence. You insult that kid, it's going to happen. Get out. You're not gonna get to that kid. He's not going to feel disrupted. He's not going to feel bad. You're not going to get, because he or she is confident in themselves. But if you, I'm not talking about that kid. I'm talking about the kid who doesn't have a lot of chances to do extracurricular activities, who doesn't have a lot of friends or not at all, doesn't have good grades, who doesn't have any positive parental presence. Like, dad's at home, but he seems like he's hangry all the time. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells all the time. I'm kind of scared. I get in trouble and he talks to me and he's loud all the time. He's angry, but I don't understand exactly what I did wrong. Mom's there, but she's playing on her phone. She doesn't like. I'm not. She's presently there, but I can't talk to her. You talk to that kid, same word, you'll crumble the guy or the person, right? right?
So self-confidence has a big component on how.
The only way you can start to, like, talking about problems. The problem we have in schools is we ask ourselves the question, how do we stop bullying? And I got two answers for that. The first and the second one will start whenever you realize that I'm right on the first one. And the first answer is you can't. It always has been, it will, and it will always happen. We can't stop it from happening. We can only make it as best as 99% better. That's the best that we can do. We're fighting a war that can't be won. It's impossible to win. Now, it's tough to swallow, but that's the reality of it. And whenever you realize that I'm right, we're going to talk about the second thing. We're asking ourselves the wrong question. Because every time you're going to ask yourself the question, how do we stop bullying? You're going to come up with an intervention. We're going to put posters on the wall. We're going to have pink shirt days, which I agree. But we can't think that a pink shirt day will end bullying. We can't have bracelets. We'll put a parade. A pink shirt day will not stop bullying. A pink shirt day creates a platform at which we can have a conversation on a subject where there's no debate. No parent is going to say, hey, I want my kids to go into a school where there's a lot of bullying. It's going to create a good, sense of... No, we'd all want our kids to go in a safe environment where there's no trouble all the time. Everybody agrees. But we can't think that we can't fix an emotional problem with an intellectual solution. And the problem is whenever maybe you decide to go in education university, you go 3, 4, 5 years. I don't know how it is in this province, but you'll study for X amount of time. They'll show you exactly what you need to do to bring a kid from point A to point B, intellectually speaking. So since Feb 2012, they came up with, like, if society wants, society gets. So the school boards or school district, you call them in here, they'll say, we'll come up with those laws, those intervention. They'll come up with those nice rules. They'll send it to the schools. Well, schools are going to say, well, I'll do my best. I'll give it to a teacher or somebody that's going to be responsible for bullying. So that teacher is going to say, well, I read the book. I read the pamphlet. I understand my task. I'll do as best as I can, like I learned in university, and I'll come up with an intervention, intellectually speaking. And you're going to say, well, why did it not work? Because one, you're trying to deal with the problem, intellectually speaking, on an emotional problem. And we're asking ourselves the wrong question. The goal is not to stop bullying. The goal is to make the situation lessen or to minimize damage. That's the goal. Let's say, do you have a sheet of paper? If I take this sheet and I make a ball with it, and I do this with all the schools, and I open it, every crease is a situation that was not felt the same way by everyone. Now, wanting to stop bullying is the same thing as I'm saying I want my kids to go through life having no creases on their papers. Tell you what, when I meet people, they'll ask me what I do for a living. I'll explain to them, and 100% of the people I meet says the same thing. Oh, I was a victim. Well, maybe, but we need to ask yourself the question: were you bullied, or were you a victim? Everybody felt bullying in their lifetime. Everybody can see themselves in a situation where it was not fair to them, right? But were you a victim of bullying? The difference is how deep is your crease. Like everybody asks me, like the story that I give to schools, it's inspired by true events. But I always said I was bullied. I was never a victim. My parents were there. I had incredible parents that were sitting with me and they were talking to me, and they filled their role so nicely. They enrolled me in sports. I had ways where I could find confidence in myself. So if I talk to a kid who doesn't have any confidence, it's as if I have a sheet. You know those sheets of paper where you can see through it. You can, that's a kid that doesn't have any confidence. My goal is to make that sheet like a cardboard, very thick. If you insult that kid who's got a cardboard, you can see the crease. There's not going to be any deepness. You're not going to define that kid. That kid's not going to think about whatever you said or did in 10 minutes. You can't get to him or her because they're confident in themselves. So the goal is for school and teachers and parents is to find or to give directions or ways that your kids can find confident in themselves. Find me a kid who's confident in themselves. I'll show you a kid who was never bullied or who was never a victim. And find me a kid who's never a victim. I'll find you a school there's no bullies. Because the only way we can stop this is to get the victims out of the equation. And now when we talk about bullying in schools, well, we need to stop bullying. Where's the bully? But the bully, they kind of don't understand what they're doing wrong, because empathy and sympathy are emotions that start, literature says, starts in grade 9 or 10. Usually that age you start to. So it's very hard for someone to understand that someone else could feel a completely different emotion I'm feeling when we're faced with the same situation. So I insult someone and I think it's funny. Now the teacher hears that and say, hey, why did you say that? That was so mean. They'll say, well, it was a joke. They're right. It was a joke. They laughed. They thought it was funny. It was a joke for them. They can't understand that I probably hurt that person while I was laughing. So whenever you say, hey, kid, you know what? You did something bad. You bullied another kid. Holy jeez, you're destroying that kid. Because now you're labeled that person as an offender. They're probably not bullies.
And that was never their intention.
That was never their intention. So whenever I speak to schools, tell you what, I'll say it's easy or pretty easy to see who are your potential kids that could do something bad, right? You can pick them out, right? Here and there. All schools have a couple of them. And I strongly believe that school systems can take that kid and make him or her understand that they did something wrong. That's not the problem. The problem is whenever they call the parents at home. Whenever they call the parents at home, my kid did what? He was a bully. My kid's not a bully. He's nice at home. Why did you? And then the kid comes back home and says, oh, what happened? The school called me. They said you bullied some kid. No. I made a joke. They're always on my case. I was playing around. We're just joking around. So he says, well, if you're joking around, why are they on your case? So now you have two parents stopping in the school and say, hey, my kid says he's not a bully. Now he's got two bodyguards. He feels confidence. So if my parents understand that I wasn't a bully, now I'm a victim. So everybody, they can't get it, right? So the problem is whenever the emotion gets a part of it. So the goal is not to get bullying out of the way, have our kids or our students have no crease. The goal is to take the deepness out of that crease. That's the goal.
You said something really powerful right there too about the potential bully feeling like a victim. So you have victims on both sides. You could have the person that's being bullied feel like a victim, and you can even on the other end of the spectrum, you could have the bully feeling like a victim.
Exactly.
And that's not talked about a whole lot.
No, it's not. But because they don't understand that what they did is wrong, because they felt good about it. Yeah. So it creates a big confusion on what is bullying. So now you have the parents involved, and the teachers are scared of pronouncing the word because it's going to have backlash from the parents. And if they call the board, well, it all starts from a bad definition. How do we define bullying?
And how much challenge is it actually even to use the word bullying now?
I can't use the word bully.
Because if you tell that same kid, hey, you told a joke that offended someone and hurt their feelings, okay, you would think it'd be easier to have the conversation without using the word bullying in there. You're like, oh, I didn't mean to hurt that kid's feelings. But the moment you say the word bullying, even as an adult, right? Like if you or I were ever called a bully, automatically you'd just be taken back. You'd be like, exactly. What do you mean? I'm so sorry. I didn't know what was happening. And you could turn into that victim that you just mentioned.
At first, like I told you yesterday, the way I speak is I redefine bullying as a victim, a bystander. I'll say it now, but I'll say what I say. A bully, a parent, as a teacher. So I redefine the problem in 5 different ways. And I got a lot of pushback when I say, because the way I do it is whenever I finish the story part, I say, I give an introduction, and then I say, if you were or have ever been a victim, and then I start. If you were or have ever been a bystander, here's the text. If you were or have ever been a bully, that's the problem. And I can't say if you were a bully, because that's not true. And I got challenged on that, and I'm really happy I got challenged, because I can't say, hey kid, you're a bully. The problem, especially in grade 9 or 10 and lower, right? And whenever I speak to high schools, grade 11 and 12, they understand what I do for a living. They understand where I'm going with this, and I have no pushback because they can understand empathy and sympathy. The problem is grade 8 and 9. That's where they have they're not there quite yet, and
Developing that.
yeah, they're in the process. And the best way I was explained to this was a psychologist was explaining to me is your head is like a let's say a mall, and whenever you grow up, like certain stores in the mall, they need to close to revamp and to put their front and everything. And the portion of the emotional portion of empathy, sympathy during that time is completely closed. That's where you have teenagers with parents says, "Why did you do that?" Well, like they don't get it. They don't get it. You're right. They don't, because that score's closed. It's going to open back up in 2 or 3 years. It's gonna they'll regain the capability of doing it or feeling it or understanding it. But right now, it's closed. It's boarded up. You can't get access to that. Right? It's in development.
And that's grade 8 and 9 usually.
Usually it's between grade and yeah, give or take a year depending on the person. But grade and 9, 8 and 8. 8 is that, but they'll say 9 with it, right? But after that, I got no pushback. But I got some pushback, regardless. And with respects, I was happy I got pushback because I would never want to say, hey kid, you were bullied. The goal is to say, hey, if ever you're a kid that did or said something that was qualified as bullying, because we need to separate the person from the action, right? Because if your kid says or does something, doesn't make that kid a bully. It make the actions or words qualified as bullying. Now we can understand that words can hurt and actions can hurt that process. But the minute that kid is identified as a bully, we're losing everything. We lost the battle. We can't have communication with no one because nobody wants to be a bully.
Well, that label.
And it's wrongfully given, right? You don't want that. So yeah. So we need to separate the action from I say kid, the person from the student, right? And the minute we separate those, now we see a little clearer on, oh, I understand I did something wrong. I'm sorry about it, right? And whenever the kid says sorry, it's perfect, right? He realizes I take that, and we can step forward from there. But the problem is you can't label, it's wrongfully so, you can't label somebody like a bully. It's not very nice.
Well, that seems like a big piece of the solution that we're talking about here is breaking away from that social norm of labeling.
Yeah.
Of, separating, as you called it, actions from the person.
Yeah.
Just because someone does something once, whether it be cognitively or not, labeling them as a bully. It's kind of like if someone, steals someone's candy bar once. Are they now a thief for life? Or, was it a misunderstanding that they thought they were told, hey, help yourself, I had 2 chocolate bars, take one.
Exactly.
What
right?
happened here?
A joke can be a joke, right? But it seems like we have a society where it's very easy and fun to make or to identify yourself as a victim. When we go online, everybody seems to have an opinion and a victim. Because whenever you're a victim, you'll have empathy towards you, and that feels good. Because you know what? Whatever I'm feeling, other people understand how I'm feeling. So I'm not wrong in this feeling, right? But you need to own up to like there's not that many victims. Right?
So what's a better way of dealing with it? Like if at a high level, I know this topic we could probably talk about for hours. But if you have a situation, whether it be kids or adults, and someone's misunderstood or hurt feelings, and the other person maybe didn't have that initial intention, what's an appropriate solution to deal with that?
I'll answer the question as a parent. Right, I introduced this game at home. Like I said, I had kids. I have kids. They're 4 and 7 now, but they were probably 3 and 6 back then. It's about a little less than a year ago, and I had this hula hoop, and the goal. This theory where you can ask your kid to go in his room 1 minute per age? Like, we never listened to that. Whatever I said is, whenever they're read, that book, The Color of Emotion. Do you know that book?
Yep.
I worked, that is a Bible in my house. So I say to my kid, oldest, not youngest, we're starting now, but I say, right now you're red. I don't like it. You can go to your room. Whenever you're yellow, you can come back out. So sometimes it takes 20 seconds, sometimes it takes 20 minutes. But he's the one. I want him to realize that right now I'm feeling red. He's got the perfect he's responsible for his emotion. I need him to realize that he can flip those emotions like that. He decides to flip it.
So let's talk about the colors, because people listening might not have ever
Perfect.
read the book, or
So
what is red and yellow. And
So it's a children book. I don't know the author, and I feel bad that I didn't write that book, because every time I read it every second night, and I love it. So it's a monster where he meets this little girl, and he's all colored differently, right? And she says, "Oh, you're all colors all mixed up. Let's identify them." So she's got blue, which is sadness, red, which is anger, gray or black, which is being scared, yellow's being happy, green is being zen or calm, and at the end they introduce like the pink color for love, right? So those are the 5 or 6 different colors. So we identify the colors. So it just makes an emotion tangible where I can relate, I can identify to a color, right? So I just need to link that color, which I can, to a feeling. So at some point, you're going to know, right now I'm feeling red, right now I'm feeling green, and I can define with that. It's a way of communication. It's a great way for kids to identify whatever they're, and that's where it starts. Emotional education should start at home, right? That's where it should start. Um, so I say, go to your room. You're red. Whenever you're yellow, you can come up. And he'll realize, right now I'm red. He'll change it. Whenever he changes it, he'll realize that he's not yellow, and he's now yellow. And he's like, Dad, I'm yellow. Well, come on in. We're not talking about it anymore. It's done. The process. I don't care what he did or what happened to make him red. He realized that he was red. He changed it by himself. He realized that he was yellow, and he identified it to me. So no more talking about, right? The case is closed.
But how do you deal with the issue at hand? Like, for example, if he got in a fight with you or another kid and turned red and then got yellow, how do you actually deal with the underlying issue?
So that was the introduction of my explanation. I'm sorry, I took a different route.
No, that's perfect. Thank you.
So my game is I introduced the hula hoop. It's orange. Like I got it at dollar store. And whenever your kids are in bed, you kind of close the house, you kind of put everything back together. That's the only toy that we never close. I don't care where it is, it's going to stay there. They're going to play with it, they're going to move it. Unless it's in my way, I can't open it. It's never hidden or put it in the right place.
Always available.
It's always there. And the game is whatever my kids say to me when they're in the hula hoop, they're never gonna get in trouble. Actually, I like to play with the word consequences, because in my speech I use the word consequences, and when I say the word, it's got a bad connotation, right? If you say you're gonna have consequences, it's a bad thing. Yeah. But consequences,
I did something wrong. Now I'm
but consequences are can be good. If you go at the gym, you go running, the consequences, you're gonna get in shape, right? If you eat well, consequences, you're gonna feel good. Consequences is a result, right? So I play a lot with that word at home. So I say, well, whatever happens, if you tell the truth, you're gonna have a positive consequence. So it's not 24 hours. It's a Sunday night. We're having family for dinner, and both of my boys are downstairs, and all I hear is, and then I say, well, Eddie, what's going on? And Eddie kind of rushes upstairs, and I said, Eddie, what's going on? And he says, 1 minute. He's looking actively for that hula hoop. So he finds the hula hoop. He gets in the circle, and he says, I hit Leo. So now you can't laugh, right? You can't. So okay, well, why did you hit Leo? He took my car. I get it, right? I understand. He took your toy car. So Leo gets in and he's crying. This is what happened, and you listen to them. And once both cases are told, he says, well, was that a good thing? No, that was not a good thing. Well, how do you think you should have reacted? Well, I think I should have got up and told you. Well, good. That's a good way of doing it, right? I got angry. I reacted. I'm sorry. So say sorry. Give him a kiss. So you accept the apologies, and then they go on. I say, Eddie, I told you we're going to have a positive reinforcement. And I said, I don't have any dessert. I told you this. What do you want for dessert? He said, well, I want M&M ice cream or Smarties ice cream. I said, I'll go get it for you. So I got out of the car, went to the grocery store, got the ice cream, and I reinforced positively the action. Now, it's a bad action, right? He hit his younger brother. But we had the discussion. I don't care about being a policeman. I don't care about what did you do wrong. I don't care about that. I don't want to be a policeman. I want him to realize that he reacted as an emotion. He realizes it, and he said sorry, and then it's all good, right? He realized it by himself. The, my goal is done.
That's
My
amazing. He
goal,
was 6 years old at the time?
he was, oh yeah, he was,
Or
but
less?
like I said, that, no, about 6, but that book is, I work a lot. I love that book. So, but 4 is a good time to start. 3, at the end of 3 and 4 is a good time to start. But 7, we that's a normal vocabulary in my house. Those colors, the way we do it is every day we talk about that.
And what's the hula hoop? Is the hula hoop like a talking stick? Like you can't...
Oh,
or,
it's normal hula hoop that you would find in the dollar store.
but why did your son want the hula hoop? Is it
No, I bought the hula hoop because I just wanted him to be in a safe space. That was
so it's a safe space. If he's standing in the hula hoop, he's not going to get in trouble for whatever he says. Is that
my goal was to create a safe space.
Yeah.
I came up with the hula hoop. It could be anything. Like a talking stick is good enough. Yeah.
That's excellent. I love it.
I don't know why I did that. I just realized that I did that for this. But yeah, that's what I did. So yeah, that's the game. So you said, how can I prevent it? Well, kids can understand that, you know what, I did something wrong because I reacted. I'm sorry. They'll get that, right? They can understand. If you separate the action from the person, you're not a bad kid. You just did something that's not good. Like you can say sorry and make amends, right?
People make mistakes. Kids, adults, everyone makes a mistake.
Exactly, right? So I just want to separate the action from the words, not make him feel bad, not label him as a bad kid or a good kid. I want him to be his own, and I want to guide him into him realizing that our goal as parents is to show our kids how to play with that thing we gave them. We gave them life. Like when we say they're my kids, I can say they're my kids, but the problem with that phrase I have with it is that M. Like they're not like my phone or my car or my house. They're not my possession. I gave them life. My goal is to show them how to use what I gave them. But at first, you change them, you feed them, you do everything for them. But they need to do it by themselves. I'm not teaching everything, but they need to do that with their emotion systems too. They need to take responsibility from their actions and their emotions. So whenever they can, put something tangible like a color on it, they can understand it. It's very simple, but it works wonders. That book,
simple but complex. Like it. I think that's one of the areas we probably don't talk enough about in society is that emotional intelligence and literacy. I talk with people all the time about the lack of financial literacy, I think, out there in Canada. And there's a huge challenge with that.
Yeah.
And simplifying the complex, so many synergies on the emotional intelligence component. You just shared a story of a 6-year-old. And I think, there's people from 6 all the way up to 100 that would benefit from that learning and that talking and that teaching.
I hope. I don't like to use the word emotional intelligence. Everybody calls it. There's a lot of books on it. I like to call it introspection, emotional introspection. So I realize that I'm feeling something. I'll identify it, and then I'll try to see what caused that emotion. So whenever I the way people will call it meditation or whatever. Like when I want to make clear in my head, I just go for a walk, and it's proven that the first 10 minutes, like everything that you're thinking is going to troubleshoot everything. So you're going to see like intellectual, we can have that emotional introspection and intellectual introspection. Like you want to see what's bothering you, go for a little walk, do something, and everything's going to come at your way, and you're going to realize, oh, my thoughts, if I make a chart, like what portion of that chart are my thoughts given to family, or what portion of that thought is given to what problem, right? So when you can identify that problem, so you just let your thoughts go and then stop and then look back and see, where did your thoughts, for what did you talk? So you can do the same thing with your emotional system, right? So you can go for a walk and then, or just relax in your room and say, how am I feeling right now? What's that color, right? Why did I choose? But whenever I gave it a name, I identified it, and then we can step forward with. So I get it why people call it intelligence. It's just me. I just call it introspection. Just look inside of you and identify it, right? So,
It makes a lot of
but
sense.
with kids, something like depression is hard to understand as a kid. Just put a color on it, on those basic ones, and we'll and then we'll talk about the different shades of red and different shades of blue and different shades of gray, right? There's a chart on Google. There you can find those 6 or 8 base emotions, and then like anger, everything that anger causes, and then joy, everything that joy causes. And you can find that with 3 clicks on Google. It's really good. So whenever you look at that chart, you say, oh, okay, I understand why you can go from angry to sad, or sad to depression, angry to anxiety, and you
These are
can
all
understand
linked.
where exactly, right? There's a process to this. You don't start being depressed. You don't start with that feeling. There's a lot of emotions that you felt leading to that big emotion of depression, right? So, but when you realize it, you say, oh my God, I think I'm depressed. I think I'm doing a burnout. Well, there is a reason for that. That your emotional system told you for a while, but we couldn't identify. We went to bed stressed, or went to bed with, unclear thoughts, and you fell asleep. But whenever you wake up and you kind of feel tired, maybe your brain is too worked up to do a proper shutdown, right? So, you know.
I think there's that's like really powerful too. Is just listening to our own emotions, and I think even as adults, right? Like a introspection of myself. I think of my last 20 years, just as an adult, and how many days you kind of go to bed or you wake up, and sometimes you wake up and you're frustrated. And there's no action with it, but you just label, okay, I'm having an off day today, so I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to do things that I know that will help me get out of that mood.
Yeah.
But labeling it and just calling it, and wives and family members, and be like, I'm just having an off day. And sometimes I'll ask my daughters, how are you feeling? And they'll be like, I'm angry. And you're like, okay, why are you angry? And I don't know why I'm angry, but I'm angry right now. It's like, thanks for labeling it. Okay, what do we want to do about it now? Right? And sometimes it could be as easy as, I need to go read a book for a couple of minutes. And they go read a book and they come out and they're different people. And how are you feeling? I'm happy. I'm better now.
Coffee does that to most people in the morning, but I think they call that like not be Zen, but do meditation. Like you can read 150,000 books, and everybody kind of seems to have their own definition of that meditation. But the way and we can have a debate on this. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but to me that word represents just to take a little time off and let my thoughts and my emotion go and look back to identify them. That's it. The way I do it is I go for a little walk. It's not very long. Usually takes between 10-15 minutes. Maybe I get music on. Sometimes it's in the car or the drive to go to work sometimes. But I get that little window where I can just sit back. It doesn't need to be an hour, right? But yeah.
Do you know what the connection is between physical exercise and what you just described? Because I notice the same thing myself. A walk and work out helps clear the mind. And there must be a connection with the emotional and physical.
There's got to be. I don't know the answer to this, but I remember, like if you do like Google research again, like both sides, Gare would love to talk to you about both sides of the brain. But whenever I went to university, or even if I read a book right now, if I read a book sitting or laying down, I'll fall asleep within the first. I'll read 3 paragraphs and I'll be snoring. Right? I can't do it. But when I went to university, the only way I could possibly study and retain information is if I was standing up or walking. So the library where I was they had like desks. They were like what do you call them? They
Cubicles?
had cubicles, and in the middle they had all those books lined up. So I would just serpentine in the books, and I would just walk with the book. But when you read a book, you can see everything that's going on. So I would never bump into nothing, right? But I would just read and be able to concentrate. So I would gives, it's the same thing that whenever you're talking on the phone, you're kind of drawing little, but you're listening to. That's where those puppets, they give
Yeah.
those the kids, they play with it, but they're able to listen to you. They don't seem like they're listening to you, but you have their whole concentration. So, but they're playing, so they're using one side of the brain, and then you can concentrate on the other side, right? Talk to Gary about what side
Yeah.
does what, but yeah.
Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing all this with us. This was a whole world of wisdom that I learned, and hopefully everyone else is really enjoying on the video. I'd love to hear a bit more on your story. Like, so bullying. There's not
All
too
right.
many, specialists in bullying and professional speakers I've ever met in bullying.
Yeah.
Why bullying? What made you want to be, I guess, a professional speaker, and B, specialize in bullying?
All right.
What's your
Those are
story?
two questions. The first one, I don't know why I wanted to be a professional speaker, but I think in the bottom of my soul, I think because when I met Gary, he kind of told me, like the story I was giving you last night, he told me, hey, you should be speaker. And, and the minute he told me this, it's like, you're right. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I don't know how I'm going to get there because there's no there's no books. Like there's nothing, just need to do it. I don't know, but I knew I, it didn't make any sense in the world. Like back then I was a student. I got out of school. My dad was so mad. He said, no, you're going back to school. Got enrolled back, but I didn't feel like I was doing the right thing. And whenever Gary said you should be speaker, it just clicked. You're right.
And what you
That
studying in school? Were you studying like
I
ancient
I
history or something with like speaking
I
background? Or
I no. I did a bachelor in kinesiology. I was doing nursing, which I got. I'm shy of 12 credits of finishing a bachelor in nursing. So one session, and then I did a diploma in paramedic. So that's
fairly
it.
analytical studies.
Yeah. So I did about 12 years of it. And and whenever I started to that whole thing with Gare is I had this theory about the four needs. I call them the physical, intellectual, emotional, and social need. And I said, well, whenever someone satisfies those four needs, they feel good about themselves. They'll have a good day. And whenever I told them that, they kind of leaned in. They were interested. So back then, I said, well, I don't know them, but they seemed interested. So I spoke about those four needs for about 45 minutes.
And what are the four needs again?
The social,
Social.
physical, intellectual, and physical. So those four needs. So you can go for a jog, you can read a book, you can what makes you happy. Maybe it's cooking, maybe it's eating a good meal, it's going to talk. Women have very big social needs. Like whenever they go to somewhere, they like to talk. Men a little more, a little less, but hey. So you can you can identify how you relate to those four needs. But whenever those four needs are met, you have a complete and satisfying day, right? So that was the theory. And after 45 minutes of talking about this theory that I just made up on the fly, he said, well, what do you do for a living? I said, well, I'm a student in university. He says, my kid, you should write a speech. I said, you're absolutely right. I just made it up like that on the fly. If I think about it 2 seconds, I'll be able to do it. So I left. He gave me a card, a business card, and I left. That was, like I said yesterday, it was in October. And I finished my session, went to did my thing, and the next day, like it was 2009. Then I met Gary in 2008. That 2009, I rented a room at university. They kind of gave it for free because I was a student for so long. They kind of felt sad for me, maybe. But I rented this auditorium, and they gave me a guy that took care of the lights and the mic and everything. I had the whole shebang. And I had posters all around the campus, and all of my friends came and listened to me, and then we went to the local pub. That's what we did, right? But I gave the speech about those four needs. And it happened that one of the people that were listening to me were got a job in the school where they had that job that they needed to take care of bullying. They called me this next year, the next school year. She called me and says, Alain, I need to book a speaker on bullying. Do you want to speak on bullying? I said, well, the speech is not bullying. Says, Alain, you want it or not? I said, I'll do it. So I signed the contract. I was in front of blank sheets. I said, I didn't even know what a grade 4 kid looked like. I didn't have any kids at 25 years old, right? So I called her. I said, can I go in your class to see what it looks like, right? She brought me in, wrote the text, and then everybody kind of liked it. So whenever one school likes it, school board kind of gets a hearing of it, and other schools hire you, right? Whenever a school board likes it, other school boards likes it, and little by little, you're across Canada in 2 languages, and then you have one speech for the grade 1, 2, 3s, and then for one for 4, 5, 6, and one for the junior highs, and one for the high schools, and one for the parents, and one for the teachers. So you have one for everyone. And now I'm putting together a K for next year because kindergarten was not in my repertoire, right? So when they need me to talk to Ks, I'll talk to the Ks.
So you're coast to coast now. You're flying in coast to
I
coast.
have the privilege to be able to say that I've given conferences in every province and territory in both French and English. So
Congratulations, that's amazing.
yeah, I for this year, this January, I gave speeches to schools in BC, but they're always by Zoom or by Teams or by video conferencing, I should say. And for the first time, I was physically it was in Barnaby, and Surrey and around just south of Vancouver. I did all of that. I did 10 schools in Lower Vancouver. Um, sometime in January. So I was physically there for the first time. So I've been physically to every province. I've been given speeches to every province for a little while, but I was physically there. Yeah.
And how many speeches do you think you've done over the years on bullying?
I
hundred,
think
or?
yeah, I think well, I was at the beginning of last school year. Those are round numbers, but I was saying 750 schools and give or take 1,200 speeches. But I think I'm closer to 1,400 speeches now, and I'm probably not at 1,000 schools. I'm probably somewhere between 8 and 10 and 1,000, somewhere in that line. So yeah.
Congratulations.
Slowly,
That's a huge milestone.
yeah, slowly but surely, I'm getting there. But usually when I speak to one school in one board, they kind of say, "Hey, you should check out this guy." Usually when I speak to one, I usually come back. Like I was in Edmonton in January, like I'm coming back to Edmonton in April. I was in Vancouver, and I'm supposed to come back in Vancouver in September, right? So whenever I go somewhere, they kind of hear about what I'm doing. So it's little by little, but there's a lot of schools.
Where you're making a difference. You're adding a ton of value
Hopefully.
to people. Well, usually when people refer others, and when you're dealing with 1,000 schools of constant referrals. And I only met you for a few minutes yesterday, and within the first couple of minutes of meeting you, and sharing what you do and kind of your viewpoints on it, it makes a lot of sense. And there's so much value. And that's why we're creating this video today to share it with hopefully hundreds or thousands or millions of more people out there.
Millions of people. Thank you for that.
Can add value to their lives.
Well, that's the goal. And the way you make it as a speaker is usually when one school it takes about 10 schools that like you for one school to hear about you. If you do a bad job, one school, 10 schools going to hear that you did a bad job. They're never going to hire you. So whenever you speak, you got to make sure that you did, like whenever they say, "Oh, you did good," that was bad. You're aiming for, "That was amazing. You're astronomical."
If it's not a 10, it's a fail.
It's not a 10. It's a 9 and beyond, and it's not good. It was good. No, you did bad. So I try, but I hope I'm doing a difference. I think I am. I feel good doing it, and I really feel and believe that whenever I go into a school and I speak, I feel like I make a difference in at least one person. Like it's rare that this doesn't happen. I have kids come to me, and whenever they say to me is, "Oh, whatever you just told me, that's exactly what happened to me." And whenever they say that to me, is the story that I give is like a vehicle in which I take to generate, transmit, make the audience feel. That's the way I do it, right? The goal is from that story is to is to make you see and feel how a victim should feel or could feel if ever they would be faced with a situation. So I realized that I could cry on command. I can generate those emotions and I can make them feel. So I kind of manipulate them into giving the type of emotions are grade 1 to grade 3 can understand. I'm not going to go crying in front of grade 1s and 2s and 3s. They're going to have nightmares at night, right? I don't want that. But grade 11, 12s, I can push a little further. Parents, yeah, they can understand those emotions. So I can portray or go get a bigger variety of emotions. So, and whenever they tell me, oh, that story is exactly what's happening, they're referring the story. That's not what they mean. They mean that whatever you felt and you make me feel, that's exactly how I feel right now. Like kids pulling on my bag and rejection, and that's not what happened to them exactly that, right? But that emotional process. The game of that story is, if you're sitting in the room and you have a pen and a pad and you listen to the story, but your game is to, whenever you see or feel an emotion, you need to put it down. You need to write it down. And whenever you'll have a list, and that list is going to be the exact process a victims is going to go through when they're faced from being happy and go lucky to, I'm being bullied. I don't know what to do about it. It's exactly so. If you're a teacher or a parent and you have that list, you're being bullied. What are you feeling? So where are you in that list? What's the process? And then you can say, oh, this is what you need to be doing. This is what you're, but because we identified it and you know where you are in that process, right? So the goal is to give you exactly what's the evolution I was talking about. You don't start with depression. You start with certain emotion. You get through that. That's the process you're going to go through, right? So that's the game. And when I speak to teachers, they all have pens and pads, and I tell them, here's what you need to do. And whenever they do it, they have a nice, I think about it as a rainbow, but it's, you can, a rainbow of emotions, but yeah, maybe it's just me verbal or identify it falsely, but it's a process, right? So that's the goal, to give you the emotional process of a victim, and then you can give it the definition as a victim, the bully, the bystander, the parent. Because whenever you identify or give a definition, an intellectual definition to an emotional understanding of it, now that's where you understand fully, right? If I go into a speech, let's say you go into a conference, anyone, and the speaker starts with telling the story with grandma that walks her little white dog every day, and there's a big story about it. And then he kind of puts all the theory that he wants to put into that story. Well, if you wait an hour after the speech and say, hey, what did you learn? You're not going to be able to tell me exactly what are the stats or the percentage, but you'll be able to tell me exactly what that story of that grandmother walking her white dog, right? So the goal is to create imagery and to attach emotion and intellectual and understanding on that imagery, right? So we all have that couch, we all have that car, we all have that whatever I identify in that story, we all have that in our heads. We all live through that, right? We all have that version. So with the story that I give, the story that they listen to, and the movie that's played in their minds, is completely three different stories. Like they'll whatever their movie is, that's where they're are going to identify the emotion. That's going to attach the definition, and then we can start the process of talking about bullying in a proper way, right? Am I making myself alienated?
Makes a lot of sense. No, thank you so much for sharing. I think we covered a lot more on the problem, dissected the problem, because I think bullying's, like you mentioned, the last decade, most people know the word and the high level of the definition, but really breaking it out between the emotional and the intellect, and the kind of that process that you just talked about of writing down the emotion. Is it an isolated incident? Is it a joke gone bad? Or is it someone that has repeatable issues that's created fear in that person?
Exactly.
I think that, so the understanding what it is was huge, and sharing with us some coping mechanisms and some strategies where even your own children, a 6-year-old, sounds like, from the point of doing something maybe that they shouldn't have by hitting their brother, to owning up to it, to talking about it, to accepting it, apologizing, and moving over. Mm-hmm. Like that sounded, is it fair? With it all within 15 minutes? Or what kind of?
Oh,
20 minutes?
it took a while. It took
Or-
about the hula hoop. It took about 15, 20 minutes. Oh no, well, from the moment he hit to the moment he got ice cream, about half hour.
Which is amazing.
So yeah,
Like that's a bit like that is like in kid world, that is seconds. When you think of how many arguments we see as even adults.
Yeah.
How many arguments go way past half an hour as adults where we can't just come to terms and say, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Okay, let's hug and shake and go get ice cream. If we could all do that in half an hour, the world would be a much easier place for everybody. So just brilliant. I thank you so much for sharing this. For the people that are watching this is resonating with them. They maybe have kids at home that they're worried about, being mistreated or bullied or vice versa, but in that age group where these emotional feelings are live, or it could be an adult feeling fear or any of those type of emotions that you talked about. Anything that the audience should be thinking to themselves or doing that they could do at home to help their either children or themselves work through this?
Well, the thing is, if like I said, if you can identify something that's not fun to being felt, take your time, try to identify it, try to put a word on it, and then try to have the conversation. If you really if you need to seek for help, there is help out there, right? So for parents and for kids, and there are help out there. So but the first step is to try to identify it, and then we can talk about whatever emotion you identified. So yeah, that would be the thing.
Great advice. Thank you so much, Alain.
Thank you so much.
Did I say it right this time?
You did great.
There you go. I'm working on it.
10 out of 10.
Anything else you want to share with us before we wrap this up?
I mean, thank you for giving me this platform to speak. It's so nice to be able to not have the stress of time to be able to communicate or to talk about a subject. Whenever people call me to go on CNN, well, I have 7 minutes. Whenever they call me to do a speech, I have 60 minutes, right? I can never go overboard because they have a time frame, but there's no time frame here, so I can just let loose and have no evolution. I can just speak how I do it. So it felt natural. It felt good doing it. So thank you for giving me this platform. It felt good. I liked it.
Well, wonderful. And thank you so much. I think myself and everyone watching learned a ton from you today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you. Thank you for sharing your story and solution with us, Alain. This wraps up this episode of Unstoppable Journeys, discussing solutions to problems to help make your journey unstoppable. Thank you for joining, and have a great day.